Okay, so yeah, you might be a little confused as to why we have a second video. If you haven't seen the last video, you should probably go watch the end of that, where I explain how, or just look at the duration of the last video to see that it's over an hour, almost an hour and 20 minutes long. So I'm just going to put the dumb phones and the not so smartphones in this video. I know the first part of the collection update was jam-packed, but we're just going to do this part in a separate video just because I don't have the computing power to process and upload a 2-hour long video. That's just literal, like, I literally do not have the hardware to do that right now. So yeah, we're just going to, so these are all the dumb phones. So for those of you that were waiting for the dumb phones, well, here you go. Alright, now moving on to what I like to call the not-so smartphones, which I guess I previously called the slightly lesser smartphones. I kind of eliminated that category last year, but I added it back because I felt like it was kind of funny and, you know, kind of a joke to have here. Anyways, most of this category is just going to be a giant pile of BlackBerries that I have accumulated in about no time at all. So there's only like 7 or 8 phones in this entire category that aren't BlackBerries. So let's actually just show the BlackBerries right now. Yeah, here they all are. Let's go and get into it. So here are all the BlackBerries, and we'll start with the 2 that are actually different models from all the rest of them, and begin with the oldest one. This is a BlackBerry Curve 8520. Actually, it might be an 8530. I'm not totally sure. I confuse the two pretty easily. It works. It's running BBOS 4.6, which is definitely an interesting look in terms of how the software just looks. It's a very odd looking skin, but I actually don't hate it. But it's a little bit weird compared to newer BBOS versions. Anyways, it works. It's on T-Mobile. I got this at my 18th birthday lot. And for the other BlackBerry model that isn't a full 17 of them, this is the BlackBerry Curve 9370, a fair bit newer than the 8520. This one runs BBOS 7, which is actually a pretty decent version of BBOS. It's not really all that usable anymore, but still kind of cool. It's well optimized for a touchscreen device, although this one isn't touchscreen. It's on Verizon, and I got this back in 2020 at an all BlackBerry phone lot. Alright, now to show you 17 BlackBerry Bold 9930s. Yes, you heard that right. I have 17 units of the same model of BlackBerry Bold. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I don't know why I do. I don't know why I haven't sold some of these, but yeah. I'm going to show each one of them briefly and point out any issues they may have. I'm going to do my best to narrate this. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but we're going to try it out. I didn't record on the internal microphone. I thought I was going to have to, but I didn't. So we're just going to give this a shot. Alright, starting out with BlackBerry Bold S. I do have labels out on the back of these, so I can sort of identify which ones have which issues. It's still not that easy, but I try and give it a shot. So this one, as you can see, once you insert the battery, after the red light turns off here, you'll see that their green light is kind of just stuck on. It never turns off. It hasn't really been much of an issue in terms of battery drain, but it's there, and it's pretty annoying. I'll say that much. But the phone works fine. Alright, here is Bold 9930A. As you can see, this one is missing the back cover. It never came with one, so I just gotta get another one. But it works no problem. Some of these do have cameras, some of them don't. It might be a little bit tough to tell which ones do and don't. This one, since the label's over the where the camera would be, doesn't. Alright, here is Bold 9930Y. This one really doesn't have too many issues, although it doesn't seem like the back cover really wants to close. Not really sure why. It might be a latch issue, it might be something wrong with the actual cover. I have no idea. So it's just kind of stuck open like that, but it doesn't really affect anything. Here is Bold R. This one really doesn't seem to have really any issues. It's been pretty much fine. All of these Bolds have absolutely horrible battery life. I mean, pretty much all my BlackBerries do. They all are not very good. And the shutdown of the CDMA towers doesn't help anything. This actually doesn't have an identification on the back, but I want to say this is Bold H. I think that's what I put as identification on it. I got this one a little bit later than all the rest of them. I got this in the lot with the 2 iPhone 8s and the iPhone 7, along with all those Z10s. So yeah, that's where that came from. This is BlackBerry Bold O. This one also works fine, doesn't really have any problems. Most of these work totally fine. There really is no issues with them, so these audio clips and just clips in general are probably going to be pretty short. This is BlackBerry Bold F. It's kind of hard to tell from this clip. I'll try and advance the clip a little bit to show you. I try to show you as best I can, but this one is cracked. It's not major or anyway, and the screen works perfectly fine. But yeah, it does have a crack in it. A couple extra. This is BlackBerry Bold U. I kind of just came up with the identifications for them. I just kind of went along a QWERTY keyboard, because these all have QWERTY keyboards, and that's how I put identification on them. Kind of a weird way to do it, but you know what? I don't care. This is Bold T. There isn't really a whole lot much to say about this one. Works fine. And that's about it. This is BlackBerry Bold P. Again, there really isn't that much to say about it. It works fine. And yeah, there you go. Okay, maybe I didn't go fully across the QWERTY keyboard. This is BlackBerry Bold 2. Yes, the actual number. This one, as you can see, has a busted line of pixels along the bottom. I don't think I dropped it or anything. I'm not really sure what happened for it to do that, but yeah, it's busted now. It used to flicker a little bit, but now it's done for. This is Bold E. There's really nothing to say about it again. And moving on. Alright, now moving on to the final row. We only have a few more to go. This is Bold D. There's really nothing to say about it. Moving on. This is Bold W. Yeah. Nothing to say about it. Let's move on. This one also has no identification, although this one is actually kind of easy to identify because it's the only one here that's on Verizon. All the other ones are on Sprint. So, yeah. This one has a weird enterprise mode on it. I think it was through some company that required passwords on their phones, and that was never taken off. So, this phone requires a password. So, yeah, it's kind of annoying. Alright, the final two. This is Bold G. This one has some just strange battery issue. It doesn't even matter which battery you put into it. All these obviously have the same battery because they're all the same model. But it just kills that battery for life. I don't know why. It just drains every battery that is put into it super fast. Alright, and the last one. This is Bold 1. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it works no problem. That's all I have to say. Okay, now let's finally move on to the other not-so-smartphones. We'll go and start with the two LG not-so-smartphones and start with this. This is an LG 306G. You've seen this a few times. This phone actually does have Wi-Fi, although at this point in time it doesn't really accept any modern certificates, so there really is no point in trying to connect it anymore because it's just not going to do anything. But it works. It's kind of cool. It's on TracFone, a GSM TracFone device, so that means that the specific SIM card registered to the device itself is the only one that works in it. I don't know why TracFone ever did that. They're idiots for doing that. But it was a thing. It was horrible. Anyways, I got this on my 17th birthday lot. Also, this phone has like the best Tetris sound set I think I've ever heard. I'm hoping my camera mic actually caught this pretty well. Roll the clip. This is an LG 800G, which is surprisingly like 4 years older than 306G. Don't really know how, because this phone feels a little bit more modern in some ways, but it also feels like way less modern in some ways. It's super small. I'm not really sure why LG made this phone so small, but it is really, really small. But there's really not much else to say about it. The battery sucks, but otherwise it's kind of just another half-assed attempt at a smartphone. And it's pretty half-assed. But yeah, still kind of cool. I got this in my 20th birthday lot. Alright, now moving on to some slightly older not-so-smartphones. You honestly probably could call these smartphones because they were kind of headlined to be that, but they sucked. So I'm not going to call them smartphones. Yeah, here they are. So we'll start with this one. This is a Palm Treo 700WX. This phone, yes, it does run on the very old Windows Mobile, and it is terrible. It's so cluttered. It's way too slow. Feels like it's missing a lot of basic functions within the system, including a way to fully power off the device. If you want to fully power it off, you have to take out the battery. The only power off function it has is to turn off the cellular radio. I don't know why Palm ever thought that was a good idea, because it wasn't. But it is still kind of a cool phone to have in the collection. It feels like such a relic nowadays. But yeah, I got this in my 20th birthday lot. This is another Palm Treo. This is the Treo 680, which is surprisingly slightly newer. I say that because this model is running the older Palm OS, whereas the 700 runs Windows Mobile. Neither operating system is actually all that good in my eye, but let me tell you, Palm OS is absolutely horrible. It's again very cluttered. It constantly locks up and freezes. It has to be restarted often, and of course there's no full power off function. You have to take out the battery. The only power off function is again to turn off the cellular radio. Yeah, Palm OS there's no consistency in the menu design either. Palm OS is just straight up dog shit. I don't know how anyone used this operating system on a daily basis, even back in 2006. But it is still really cool to have in the collection. It has a full-size SD card reader, and no, that is not a CF card reader. That is an SD card reader, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I got this in my 20th birthday lot. Alright, and last for the not-so-smartphones, let's go ahead and move on to the 4 Samsung not-so-smartphones. Here they are. Let's get on to it. This is a Samsung Flight 2. A lot of people would likely put this in the dumb phones category, but I'll put it here because it does run a form of TouchWiz, and it has a lot of older smartphone characteristics. The old TouchWiz icons give that away upon first glance, but it also has a lot of smartphone-like apps, and it doesn't need a SIM card reader to perform functions that shouldn't require one, so that's a smartphone trait. It does have some issues. The lock button on this one doesn't seem to do anything. The battery is really not good at all. And it'll often just go into what I call freeze mode, which is basically what it sounds like. But to break it down, the screen will just randomly turn on with no input from me at all. It'll go to the home screen most of the time without being picked up or really touched at all. And it'll just completely freeze up. It won't do anything. Has to completely restart to get out of it. That obviously happens to other phones, but it doesn't happen nearly as often as it does on this phone. It's so weird. It's kind of insane how much it actually does happen. But anyways, it's on AT&T. I got this in a phone lot with a couple other dumb phones off of eBay. This is another Samsung Flight 2. This one I'd say is in slightly worse condition than my other one, but it actually does do all functions properly. Doesn't have freeze mode from my eye. I'd say the battery is a little bit worse on this one. Neither of them are very good, but this one actually is pretty bad. But the lock button actually works on this one. I haven't really done too much with this. I literally did the first testing, charged it up, and then for the last 2 weeks before shooting this video, I was in finals, so I didn't really have too much time to do anything with this one. So I can't speak on everything yet, but it seems to work no problem. I got this in my 20th birthday lot. This is a Samsung Seek. I'm sure a lot of people would consider this to be a dumb phone, but it does run a stripped down version of TouchWiz, so it will count as a not so smartphone in my book. Anyways, this phone is actually kind of cool. Yes, the OS is kind of cluttered and not very well put together, but it is usable, and this is actually one of the best resistive touchscreens I've ever used. This is the better color of the Seek. The other one that I remember was this really, 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 really hot pink, and is definitely not for me. But anyways, this is a pretty cool phone. I got this in my 20th birthday lot as well. And last for the not so smartphones, which you have seen 1.5 million times over on my channel, this is a Samsung Blackjack 2. Runs Windows Mobile, so it definitely gets put in this section. Windows Mobile feels like such a relic nowadays. I always forget just how slow it was, for one thing. Like, it is insanely slow. Always chugging and lagging badly. But also just how much different the OS feels than even compared to something like the newer Windows Phone, which is kind of unique in its own way. This just feels like such a strange OS for a phone. It always feels so weird when it gets put on a touchscreen. It feels a little bit better when it doesn't have a touchscreen. But anyways, it's in black. I would really like to get some of the other colors for this phone because they are really cool looking, especially that maroon color. And if they have it, I don't think there was a pure white. There might have been. There was like this one like kind of faded pink that I remember. That one was pretty cool. But yeah, definitely want to get some of the other colors. I can't remember if there were any singular models of the Blackjack 2. This one's on AT&T, as you can tell. Around the time it should be. There should be singular models, but I'm not totally sure. This is my dad's old phone, so I got it off of him. Alright, we are finally getting on to the dumb phones, and I have a lot of dumb phones. So we're going to save the big three brands for last, which is Motorola, Samsung, and LG. I have a crap ton of each of those brands. We're going to start out with Kyocera. Here are the two Kyocera phones. Let's go ahead and get on with it. Starting with this one, this is a Kyocera Marble. That is spelled M-A-R-B-L. I know, weird. Anyways, it does work. I still need to get a new battery for this one. It's my only phone that's on Virgin Mobile, which is kind of cool. Times have changed, man. Strange to think that Virgin Mobile went completely under. Anyways, I got this on my 17th birthday lot. It's kind of a cool phone, but it actually feels like really, really ancient for even coming out in 2007. And for the other Kyocera phone, which is a dramatic shift from the other one, this is a Kyocera Dura XV. This is probably like the nicest dumb phone hardware I have in my collection, although I still have yet to acquire an LG Exalt or LG Terra. Anyways, this phone honestly isn't too bad. It can't tell the time anymore due to the CDMA tower shutdown, which is kind of pathetic, I'm not gonna lie. But it works. I got this in that all dumb phone lot with the Flight, which was almost 2 years ago now. Kind of weird. Now moving on to my only Sony phone, or Sony Ericsson, which honestly you could probably put this in not so smartphones, but the operating system is absolute ass, so I'm not going to. This is a Sony Ericsson Vivaz. This phone is very strange and very broken. It runs the god-awful Symbian OS. I don't like the way this is laid out. I just think it feels not well put together. But I guess it's kind of normal for an OS that's built by Nokia. Anyways, this phone in particular has a lot of problems. The screen is internally screwed, sometimes to the point where the AT&T logo turns into Rainbow Road. If that makes any sense, I'm hoping I have a clip of it doing it. Probably not, but and sometimes the backlight will just cut out entirely, but then it'll turn back on at some spurts. I'm not really sure how it does it, but it works somehow. The battery also just absolutely sucks. I got this at my 18th birthday lot. Moving on to this thing. This is a Newmind F15, which is incredibly strange. This phone does not work at all. It just kind of randomly died after a few months of owning it. Might have to do with that giant crack in the hinge area, but it also might have to do with it was a Chinese piece of shit. Not trying to be racist or anything here, but it's just absolutely horrible. So, typical Chinese engineering, not really sure. But yeah. It also just looks kind of cool. So, yeah, that's why I have it. Moving on to my only UT-Starcom phone. This is a UT-Starcom CDM 7076, which is a really, really stupid name. But that was, I guess, typical of dumb phones back then, back in 2008. This phone honestly feels like a really poorly built prototype. It doesn't feel complete at all. The screen is god-awful. It has a refresh rate of, like, I want to say 7 Hertz? It's probably about right. And the battery doesn't even need the CDMA shutdown to absolutely suck. At least it doesn't need some dumb proprietary charger. It just charges with a mini USB cable. So, thanks UT-Starcom. That's kind of nice. But yeah, it works, but not very well. I got this in my 17th birthday lot. Now moving on to my 2 Pantech phones. Starting with this guy, this is an original Pantech Breeze. This phone is very weird, has very unusual software, although until I got my other one pretty recently, this is the only time I've ever used or held a Pantech dumb phone, so it kind of makes sense, I guess. Anyways, this phone is not very noteworthy other than I think I can safely assume that this phone was meant for a much older demographic. I think that's what Pantech and AT&T were targeting with this one. But it works. The battery on this thing is absolutely horrendous. It's absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. I got this out of the AT&T bin. And for the other Pantech phone, this is a Pantech Jest 2. This also feels like a really strange phone, but I guess that's not really that strange when you look into it. I don't know. This phone is just really confusing, if that makes any sense. It's very squared off, which is a very unusual form factor for a phone, but that is obviously to fit that full QWERTY keyboard, but it's also just really, really wide. Like, I don't really know why. It has this huge front bezel, so could they have put the keyboard on the front of the phone to make it a little bit thinner? Probably not, because it's so short, but I don't know. Anyways, it is a neat phone. The power button on this one is basically shot, so it's really hard to navigate through the phone. but you can get it to respond from time to time if you really push it. But in this clip, as you can see, I was not able to do it here. I had to jump it to get it to start, so that was pretty annoying. But anyways, it's still kind of cool. I got this at my 20th birthday lot. Now moving on to my 3 Sanyo phones, and here they are. Let's get on to it. We'll start with the 2 models that are identical to one another. These are 2 Sanyo SCP-5300s. They both work. Their batteries absolutely suck, although that is mainly due to the CDMA towers being shut down. This one is in worse condition and has some sort of internal fracture inside the hinge that causes it to kind of just flop around. Don't really have much control over where the hinge goes. It's also just really scratched up. This one on the right is in better condition, although I can sort of start to feel that the hinge is starting to buckle. So that's not great. I'm really hoping neither of them decide to just full on fall apart, but it could happen. They both work on Sprint, which of course does not exist anymore. I got these gifted to me by one of my mom's now former coworkers, along with the other Sanyo that I'm about to show you, which is this guy. This is a Sanyo PM8200. Definitely not in very good condition. The outside display does not work at all. I think it just doesn't register when it's closed, because I have seen something on it before, but even that was a while ago, and even then I think the backlight was pretty much dead. But it works. Also, the power button is basically shot, so it takes a lot of effort just to get it to boot up. So if you'll excuse me for a second while I try to get it powered up. Okay, that actually didn't take as much effort as I thought it was going to, but sometimes it takes a lot. But it works. There isn't really a whole lot you can do with it anymore. Battery also sucks on this thing. I got this. Yeah, I already told you where I got this from. Now moving on to the big 3 dumb phone brands, and we're going to begin with Motorola. And here they are. Let's go and get on with it. This is in no particular order, by the way. This is just in the order as it is listed on my collection log. We'll start with this one. This is a Motorola Razr V3M. This is one of 3 different Razr models that I own. It works, but with the mass CDMA tower shutdown, a lot of functions are just disabled on this phone, and it continues to search for service 24/7. And with that constant searching, it absolutely murders the battery life of this phone. Basically, every phone on Verizon and Sprint relied on these CDMA towers to do everything. This phone didn't have great battery life to begin with, but now it is way, way worse. But yeah, it's on Verizon. I got this from a family member. This is a Motorola Barrage, which is just an absolute giant brick of plastic. Feels like you could just throw this at someone and it would just fracture their skull. Anyways, yeah, it doesn't weigh as much as an actual brick, obviously. This also works, and it also has lost a bunch of functions due to the CDMA tower shutdown. Although I will say newer Motorola phones that are affected by this have much better function than phones from other brands, like LG and especially Samsung. I don't know why. Motorola just gotta build their phones better, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, it works. I got this off of eBay for like 10 bucks. This is a Motorola W385. This phone is in horrible condition. I'm gonna be completely honest, this phone is absolute garbage in general. It's just not good. The battery is absolutely horrible. It definitely does not need CDMA shutdown to have a trash battery. And for some reason, this has a completely stripped down version of BrOS that is missing a lot of basic functions, some really stupid ones at that, such as a full factory reset function. If you want to reset the phone, you are literally required to do it yourself. Why? Why was that ever a thing? But anyways, I got this in my 17th birthday lot. This is a Motorola W418G, or as I like to call it, the Fakerola. This phone doesn't look or feel like any Motorola phone that's ever existed before, and I'm pretty sure it is manufactured by some really cheap and crappy Chinese brand. It has no Motorola software traits. It's not a real Motorola phone. That's hence why it is called the Fakerola. It is literally just, it has nothing more than the Motorola branding. But it works, it's on TrackPhone, and I got this at my 17th birthday lot as well. This is a Motorola Razr V3, the OG boss razor, as I like to call it. It's such a cool phone in the classic T-Mobile magenta. I don't know if this is actually an exclusive T-Mobile color or not, but it kind of makes me think it is because it has that T-Mobile coloring. Anyways, it works. It runs actual Motorola software, not BrewOS, and not Fakerola software. It is really cool. I do like this phone a lot. I got this at my 18th birthday lot. This is a Motorola Rival, which is one of the weirdest slider phones, but weird in actually a pretty cool way. This phone came out in 2009 for context. It has a partial touchscreen, which sounds kind of strange when you put it together, but it is actually really cool. Just take a look at this. So as you can see, there is no dial pad on the front of this phone. So how do you dial a phone number, you ask? Press this button, which looks like a menu button, but it is not, and then use the hidden touchscreen. That's pretty cool. And it's not just for the dial pad. While almost nobody would use the garbage that Verizon called emojis, you could use the touchscreen to select them. So this phone is super cool. It also came in a really cool purple color. I couldn't find one, unfortunately, but the silver is still very nice looking. I got this on eBay for about $7. This is a Motorola Razr V3 XX. I've been wanting to get more versions of the Razr for a long time. Still have a few more to acquire, but this I think is one of the coolest ones. This one isn't in very good shape, but I did get it out of the Target bin, so it makes sense, I guess. But this one is cool. It's one of the last Razrs to come out before the Razr 2, and I definitely do want to get that Razr 2. So yeah, super cool little phone. The battery's terrible on it, but I think that was kind of a common theme with Razrs. Although my regular V3 actually isn't that bad. Not really sure why. But yeah, pretty cool. And like I said, I got this out of the Target bin. And last for the Motorola dumb phones, this is a Motorola i776. This phone is very odd. It honestly feels like a prototype. It's missing a lot of features, and the system feels like it has a lot of options that the final version really shouldn't have. It's very strange, but it's kind of an interesting piece of hardware, and that hinge on this phone is super satisfying. Really, really cool. I got this in my 20th birthday lot. Alright, now moving on to my mass amount of Samsung dumb phones. This one is probably going to take a little while. And here they all are. Let's go and get into it. Starting with this is a Samsung Intensity 2. I've had this one for quite some time now. I don't know why, but the Intensity 2 has always been one of my favorite dumb phones. Yes, it was pretty common, but I always thought it looked kind of cool. This one is in the, I guess the most boring color out of the three, the metallic gray, but it's still not that bad. It's still pretty cool looking with the orange accents. You obviously can't do much with this phone anymore because it is a Samsung and Verizon dumb phone. But it is still really cool. I bought this on eBay a few years ago for like $11. I think this was actually the first phone I ever bought on eBay, so it's kind of cool to still have it. This is another Samsung Intensity 2. This one is in the beautiful metallic blue. I wanted to get this one when I got my first Intensity 2, but it was actually surprisingly difficult to find one for the price I found the gray one for. But nevertheless, I have this one. I got this in an all dumb phone lot, same one I got the Dura XV in. This is a Samsung Gusto, not in the greatest shape. I've had this one for quite some time now. The Gusto is a strange phone. Obviously meant to hit a low price point back in 2010 when it first came out, but it has an absolutely horrendously terrible, awful, garbage screen. I don't even know how this was acceptable on a phone this low end. It was terrible, but it works. It sometimes just like to boot up on its own accord. Don't really know why. It's actually been doing it a lot more recently. You just put the battery in and it's just like, oh yeah, that's my cue to boot up. I don't know why. I never gave it permission to do some dumb shit like that, but there's no way for me to stop it, so I don't know. But I got this at my 17th birthday lot. This is a Samsung Alias 2, which is a really, really cool phone. For starters, it opens not only like this, but like this as well. And if you take a look at the keypad, looks pretty normal, right? Not even close. This is actually an e-ink display under the keypad. These are still physical buttons, they're not touch sensitive, but they can easily convert into whatever mode is needed for the current use of the phone, including a full QWERTY keyboard. No T9 allowed here. Anyways, it is a really cool phone, and I'm really happy to have this in my collection. I got this in my 19th birthday lot. This is a Samsung Trance, which is supposed to be really cool, but I haven't had a chance to really prove that theory because this has an unknown lock code on it. Why haven't I gotten rid of it? Well, because I don't have another one, and I want to keep this one until I do get another one, especially since this one is in the really nice and apparently pretty rare blue color. Wish I could use this more, but I cannot. I bought this on eBay about 3 years ago for like $9, something like that. This is a Samsung Freeform 2, as I have been told by people in my comment section. I thought that was the Metro PCS model only, but apparently not. I don't know. Anyways, this phone is very screwed up. The battery contacts, or at least one of them, are completely shaved. I don't even know how that's possible. I'm not even sure how this thing accepts a battery anymore, but it does. The battery inside of it is completely water damaged, or so it indicates, so I don't know how that works anymore either. Basically, I don't know how this thing works at all anymore. It's immortal. But anyways, it does, and it isn't very interesting, but it doesn't require a SIM card, so thank you, TrackPhone, for making a CDMA phone that is usable. Anyways, I got this in my 17th birthday lot. This is a Samsung SGH T105G. Yep. Which is the most basic of basic. Has about the same size screen as my Apple Watch. Actually, I think it might be smaller. And it is easily more basic than the Apple Watch. Doesn't really have too many functions available at all. The battery absolutely sucks. So there really isn't much good about this phone. But it works, and it's kind of just unique, I guess. I don't know. I got this in my 17th birthday lot as well. This is a Samsung SGH X497. I don't have the charger for this one, so I'm not sure if it works or not, but I'm working on hopefully getting one soon. It's not in the greatest of condition, but it still looks like it would work, but we won't know until we know. I got this one out of the Target bin. These last 6 Samsung phones I got my recent 20th birthday lot. Just wanted to say that so I don't have to keep repeating myself. This is a Samsung Convoy 3. Not exactly noteworthy, but actually kind of a neat phone. Has a much better screen than I expected it to. Like, really not that bad at all. It's pretty well built, even though it is meant to be a rugged, dumb phone. It kind of feels like Samsung actually put some effort into a cheap-ass phone, which is kind of cool. This is a Samsung SGH A157, which is the flip phone version of the most basic of basic. Has a really small, terrible screen. At least it has some sort of feature set though, and a actually pretty decent sound synth. But other than that, this is a flip phone without an exterior screen, which was sort of normal for older flip phones, but this phone came out in 2012, so that was a very weird design choice for the time. This is a Samsung SGH T239. This phone has acted incredibly weird since the day I received it. It seems like all the buttons on the front are just completely improperly wired, and they all do the wrong bit of the operation. Like the arrow keys, they're all working in the wrong direction. So it's kind of hard to use this phone. I'm not really sure how that's possible, but it is apparently. So I haven't been able to get all the old user data off this phone, but it doesn't seem like there's really anything sensitive on it, just some old texts, and most of them seem like they're from T-Mobile, so that's really about it, so not a huge deal. This is a Samsung SPH M220, a very basic phone, but actually kind of cool. It's a pretty nice color. It has a really neat indicator light. It's actually underneath the Samsung logo, which is kind of cool. I don't know. I found joy in the stupidest things. Anyways, it's just a block of plastic, basically. It has the dumb phone special screen from the time this came out, which means low resolution, extremely low refresh rate, and it's just pretty small. But it is still kind of a cool phone. Definitely interesting to have in the collection. I haven't seen a lot of other collectors that have this model. This is a Samsung SPH M320, which isn't too much different compared to the M220, just slightly more premium, I guess. I actually really like this red color. It does have a slightly better screen than the 220, but it still has all the same basic software and a less cool indicator light. But it is in a slightly more premium body, I guess. I don't know. Still kind of cool to have, though. And last for these Samsung dumb phones, which might actually be the coolest, this is a Samsung Exclaim. The reason I say this might be the coolest is, yes, the Alias is very cool with its dual hinge flip and its e-ink keyboard. This might actually be cooler because it is a dual hinge slider, which I think is even more unique than the dual hinge flip. The only other phone that I ever remember trying the dual hinge slider was the Pantech Matrix, and that phone was really cool, but it was also super basic. The Exclaim, as you can tell, isn't in great shape. It's pretty scratched up, it's missing the backplate, and the speaker is completely blown, so anytime it tries to play basically any sound, it just sounds like a dying cat, which isn't exactly great. And for the final part of the showcase, let's get on to my LG dumb phones, which will probably take the longest out of any of these bits. I have counted, I have 21 LG dumb phones. So here they are. Let's go ahead and get onto it. Starting with this is an LG Cosmos 3 in really awful condition, just paint chippings everywhere. The battery fused itself to the phone, so it refuses to come out. I have no idea how that's possible or why it did that, but it will not come out. I have tried so many times. I'm just super impressed with how the condition can get this bad on any phone. I mean, how cheap was the paint that LG was using, and how careless was the original owner? Anyways, it works. The screen is also super scratched up, so you can barely see a damn thing. But it exists, and it works. I got this out of the university recycling bin. This is an LG Octane. This phone is actually really sentimental to me. This was my grandmother's old phone, and having this in memory of her really means a lot. So, just pretty cool. This phone is still in pretty good condition. It works just fine. I've always really liked the Octane. I remember seeing them around pretty frequently back when they first came out in 2010. This was actually a surprisingly popular phone. But I also know a few people that have never even heard of this phone, and I sort of get surprised when I talk to someone that hasn't heard of it. But yeah, it is a really cool phone. I like it a lot. This might actually be the nicest dumb phone hardware. I kind of want to take back what I said about the Kyocera Dura XB. Anyways, this is an LG VX8700, which, as you can see, is made completely out of metal, which was rare for a dumb phone, especially back in 2007. So that's why this is one of my favorite dumb phones, because it just feels so unique for its time period. I love it. I've always loved this phone. I got this in my 19th birthday lot. This is an LG VX5500. This one is in pretty rough shape, as you can tell. It's pretty scratched up. The logos on the front are just straight up missing at this point. But the condition is not even slightly close to the biggest issue with this unit anymore. As you can tell, the screen is just completely bad and can't be used at all. I've seen this issue on other phones, and typically, I think this means that the display connector or the flex cable has just gone completely bad. At least that is what I've seen from other collectors that have devices with the same issue. So it sucks, but not a huge loss. So yeah, this was my grandfather's old phone. This is another LG VX5500. This one still isn't in great shape, but at least the screen works, so I can't complain about that. There isn't too much you can do with this phone at this point. At the end of the day, it is still a basic flip phone, but it is cool to have at least one that I can do things with. This was also my grandmother's old phone. This is an LG Accolade, which was the successor to the 5500, and what I have always thought is a pretty cool phone. I really like it. I don't know why I've always liked the Accolade. It just feels like kind of nice. I mean, I know it's meant to be cheap and, you know, hit a low price point, but I actually think it's kind of cool, so I've always liked it. I got this in my 17th birthday lot. This is an LG Extrovert. I've heard a lot of people say this phone is actually a kind of a piece of shit, but honestly, I don't really think so. It hasn't really given me any problems. The plastic screen, the plastic layer on the screen, as you can see, is kind of pierced. It's like bubbling. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but yeah, I mean, the screen works just fine. But yeah, I always think this is kind of a cool phone. I really like the design, the black and red. I just thought it's a really cool combination. And it's also really small, so that's kind of cool. I got this in that all dumb phone lot. This is an LG Cosmos 2. No, it's not in horrible condition like that Cosmos 3. It's actually in pretty decent shape. But the Cosmos 3, I mean, the Cosmos 2 and Cosmos 3 are basically the same phone, just the Cosmos 3 is released later. But they have the same software, they run on the same battery. They are literally the same phone. So not all that interesting. But this one, yeah, it's in pretty nice shape. I got this out of the university recycling bin, and it still had, like, seals on it. It wasn't in its original box, obviously, because it was in a recycling bin, but pretty cool. This is another LG Cosmos 3. This one, as you can tell, is in way better shape. Just putting these two side by side is kind of hilarious, that this one is so destroyed and then this one is in pretty nice shape. This one, I mean, again, not a very interesting phone, you know, run this, you know, bro-s. It doesn't have a lot you can do with it, but it works, so yeah, I guess that's all that matters, and it's in decent shape. I got this in the all dumb phone lot as well. This is an LG VX8300. As you can tell, it's not in great shape. It's got some weird screen marks that I've never been able to get off. It didn't clean up very well when I first got it, but it works, although I can't really do too much of it because it has an unknown lock code as well, which is unfortunate. That was actually my fault. I just stupidly hit the lock button that's on the front of the phone, thinking that, oh, it was just going to lock the keypad and I was going to be able to unlock it easily, but nope. So no idea what the code is, and I have no clue how to get into the phone. So yeah, it's also missing the back cover. It was like that when I got it. So not a huge loss because these phones are fairly common, but it still kind of sucks. I got this in my 17th birthday lot. These next three phones are very broken, so that's why they are in bags. Just wanted to put that out there for reference. This is an LG VX6100. This phone, I grew up with this phone. This was my mom's old phone, so I've had it for a pretty long time. It was so cool. It had an awful battery, but it was actually pretty cool. The keypad actually does still kind of work. It does light up, get power when you put a battery in it, but I mean, there's really too much use to it. It's obviously not getting a screen feed, so not really all that big of a deal. But yeah, it split in half. The hinge just fell apart after a while. It's kind of poorly built, I guess. I don't really know. This is an LG Venus. This one was kind of unfortunate. So I bought this on eBay a couple years ago, and then the exact next day after I received it, I noticed that the hinge or the sliding mechanism was kind of loose, so I was like gonna try and open it up and see if there was something I needed to tighten, but like an idiot, because I am one, I just split the screen cable and it just, you know, exploded from there. So yeah, this one was unfortunate. I really want to get another Venus because I love this phone. I've wanted one for a long time, and I was so pissed when I broke that screen cable. So, yeah, really unfortunate, but, you know, it's a loss. Not really much you can do with it. This is an LG AX155. This phone, you can easily label this as a piece of shit. When I got it, it didn't have a battery, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll just buy a battery and it'll work fine. So then I bought one, and I realized that the screen just did not work. So yeah, that, from what I read on forums, it was a pretty common issue with this model. It's just some really cheap Altel model that, you know, was never really used or bought, that just never sold all that well. So yeah, not really much of a loss. I ended up drop testing it, so that's why it's in all these pieces. I've labeled this as a piece of shit phone, and never really worth it, but you know, whatever. I got this in my 17th birthday lot. Alright, moving back on to phones that actually work. This is an LG Rumor Reflex, although this phone doesn't work all that well. The battery sucks, the power button is completely shot, so I have to jump it to get it started. People have said this phone is a piece of crap, and I can kind of see it. It doesn't run smoothly. I mean, it was kind of cheap back in 2012, I guess. I don't really know. Yeah, I just don't think it's really all that great of a phone. But it's here, it exists, and that's about it. So yeah. Also, I got this one out of the university recycling bin as well. This is an LG Wine. There were a couple generations of this phone. This is the original one, and I actually think it looks kind of cool. Although I think there was like some brandy wine red color, which is one, kind of appropriate, and two, I think it looks pretty cool. I can't remember, but or maybe it was like purple or something, I don't know. But this is just the basic silver color. It still looks pretty nice. The battery in this phone isn't good, and I actually use this as a hotspot to charge other batteries, even if they don't fit, because some phones have bad charging ports and they can't charge batteries, so that's the reason I do that. But anyways, it works. It's my only phone in US Cellular, which is kind of cool. And it doesn't run horrible software. Not great, but not horrible. I got this in that all dumb phone lot as well. This was my first phone ever. Yes, this exact one. This is an LG CE110. This phone is super basic, but it's pretty cool, actually. I know a lot of people that have never even heard of this phone. I think it was a fairly rare model, but it was super cheap. It was a Go phone. It was literally labeled as a Go phone. So, also, Go phone days. Where'd those go? Anyways, yeah, but kind of a cool model. This one's pretty messed up now. At this point, the hinge is starting to fall apart. It actually dropped at one time, and the hinge, you know, popped out of the side, which isn't great, but you can pop it back into place and it works no problem. So yeah, the battery is also absolutely horrible, and the charging port is now broken. So yeah, that's what I was referring to with the wine. But yeah, it works. So still cool to have my first phone. This is an LG B470, which I have been told is also known as the LG True. I don't know how true that actually is. Heh. Anyways, this one's kind of cool. It's not really all that noteworthy. These are pretty common, but still kind of cool. I mean, it's definitely, you know, a newer dumb phone. This came out, I think, in 2014, so it's kind of cool just to mess around with, you know, play around with. I know there were track phone models and other carriers that had this model, so yeah, kind of interesting to get one of them. I got this one out of the AT&T bin. This is another LG True. This one, as you can tell, is on Cricket, which, I mean, is basically the same phone. It runs the same. It actually is a different model number. It's the B460 and not the B470, but the software is basically the same. There's really nothing different besides, you know, the startup screen, pretty much. Again, pretty cool, but, you know, not a ton you can do with it. It actually doesn't even have any games, which that's kind of unfortunate. So, yeah, but still kind of a cool phone, you know, kind kind of cool to get. I'm gonna try to get, you know, all the carriers of this phone, and I got this in my recent 20th birthday lot. This is an LG VX5200, so one of the old gen Verizon phones. Not super old, but this came out in 2005. I actually really like this one. It's pretty cool. I mean, it has the dumb phone special screen, so terrible refresh rate. It's pretty small, and it has a really small outside display, but it actually is color, so it's kind of cool. But I actually think it's a really cool phone. It has a really good speaker, which that was kind of a thing with these older LG phones, at least some of them. So it sounds pretty nice, and yeah, it's just overall kind of an interesting phone. I got this one out of the Target bin. This is an LG Rumor Touch, which is not similar to the Rumor Reflex. This one is so much better. I think it's slightly older. I think this one came out in 2010, I want to say. But this one is much better. It runs, I mean, pretty much the same software, but it has a better looking screen. It has a better touch layer, honestly. I just think this is an overall nicer phone. It's pretty fun to use. And it has a really cool color. The keyboard does slide the wrong way, which is kind of strange, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a really cool phone. I like it a lot, and I got this in my 20th birthday lot. And the last phone in the entire showcase, we have reached the end. This is an LG Extrovert 2. Honestly, I could probably put this into the not so smartphones, but it still runs BrewOS, so I'm not going to do that. But it's kind of a decent phone. It's actually a lot bigger compared to the original Extrovert, and in a beautiful ocean blue color. Like, this color is slept on. It looks really nice. But outside of that, it's just, you know, a newer Verizon slider phone. Slider phones are cool. I miss them. But yeah, not really a whole lot you can do, but still kind of cool. Kind of a neat interface. And I also got this at my 20th birthday lot. Holy crap, that is a lot of devices. Let me actually do an official head count now that I have all of them laid out here. So let me do that. All right, I just counted them all, and I have 165 phones, tablets, MP3 players, and other devices. Good Lord, that is a lot. Just think back to 8 years ago when I started this channel. I had, I think, 7 or 8 real phones and those stupid toy phones that I showed off in my original collection update. But now I have 165 real devices. That is insane. Anyways, that is going to be it for me in this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, you guys know what to do. Smash the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button down below. My favorite video to make this year is out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It took a lot of time, but I'm really excited with the way it turned out. So yeah, but that's all I've got here, and I'll go and catch you guys in the next one. Peace.